Welcome to the Construction Big Breakfast, where we give you a hearty serving of insider tips and business strategies to help fuel your day so you can thrive in the construction industry. Now, here's your host, Tip Top Tim Fitch.
Hello, everyone, and welcome to the latest episode of the Construction Big Breakfast. And this week, it's me, your host, Tip Top Tim Fitch, and we've got our special guest, Trevor Turnbull. Say hi, Trevor.
Tim, good to see you again. As always. It's been too long, though, right?
Yeah,
it's been, what, like 3 years since we actually met face-to-face? At least.
We'll come back to that in a minute.
Yes.
We've also got Sarah Hall on. Sarah's our communications consultant, stroke leader. And she's usually behind the camera, but this week she's on because she's very interested in what Trevor's got to say, and I'm sure can contribute to the discussion. So before we get into the meat and potatoes, you know what's coming next, Trevor, because you've been well briefed. Trevor,
that's right.
What do you have for breakfast this morning?
All right, Tim. So I feel kind of ashamed here, but I'm just a straight up coffee in the morning kind of guy right now. That being said, though, you forewarned me about this question, and since it was Cyber Monday recently, I went and bought a Vitamix blender, and I will be having green smoothies every single day for the rest of my life.
I approve.
When you spend that kind of money on a blender, you eat green smoothies first thing in the morning. So, yeah.
I think this is episode about 40. No one's ever admitted to having a green smoothie before, Trevor. So you're right up.
Yeah. Now I have to follow through. So I'll make sure that I let you know that I'm actually drinking these green smoothies in the morning. But that is the intention. That is the intention.
We want to see you glowing next time you're on the podcast.
That's right. Yes. I'll just take a picture. I'll take a picture and I'll send it to you guys through LinkedIn.
Yeah. And Sarah, what about you? What did you have today?
Maple syrup and pancakes.
Oh,
my dad dropped them off. Yeah, actually, my dad dropped off a big, huge bag of pancake mix and a raspberry maple syrup, which I've never tried before, and I'm not sure about. It's very sweet. So it was really sweet. But yeah, it was my first time having maple syrup since I got back to Canada 2 weeks ago. So
yeah, I was going to say it's very Canadian of you.
And very decadent breakfast, but my dad was being ultimate Canadian when he dropped it off. So
I must explain to our viewers, you probably see behind me, it is dark. So I'm sat in the outskirts of London and it is 5:20 in the afternoon. Obviously, we're filming this in December, so it's pitch black. Sarah and Trevor are in British Columbia, on the other side, far side of Canada. So there's an 8-hour time difference. So they've just had their breakfast. I'm looking forward to my dinner.
Still having my breakfast right here.
Now, my second breakfast is the coffee.
the other thing to say is today was the first day of the end of the second lockdown in the UK. So I got up extra early, got my gym kit on, got in my little car and drove to my local gym. I was there at 6:25 because I had an email from them yesterday to say we're open, so welcome back. So I thought, great, I'll be there. It's a 24-hour gym. Got there at 6:25, all locked up, totally deserted. I rang the doorbell, got through to the security guard. He said, read the email. I did read the email and it said we're open tomorrow. And then it says there's a little letters said click this link for further details. And of course I clicked, said we're open at 8 o'clock in the morning.
So your first time back at the gym and they don't even let you in.
Exactly. So I was a little bit frustrated, but I came back and then had my breakfast, and I'm ashamed to say it was just toast. I had one piece with Marmite and one with marmalade and really good coffee.
There you go.
Anyway,
well, you're building the new habits again. That's actually kind of in line with what we'll talk about here today too. So
right, getting back in the gym is important. So first of all, let's just turn the clock back, Trevor.
Yeah.
What was it that we actually met virtually initially? Can you remember?
Virtually, before we started working together, it's got to be at least 4 years ago, maybe even 5. Could be. But that was back in the early days of my company that was created off the back of a speaking gig that I did It was across Canada speaking tour, talking to financial advisors at the time about LinkedIn. And then I built a LinkedIn lead generation company. And essentially that's kind of where we first met. I can't remember exactly how it happened, but I know you were one of our first clients.
I'll tell you how it happened. Somehow or other, I came across Lewis Howes. And then that migrated. You came up with a new super duper offering. I signed up for it, and you were teamed up. Who was that lady you were well, the lady you were
Nicola.
teamed up? That's
Nicola.
right.
Yep.
Now, weirdly, yeah, I did that course, your video,
Right.
and then there was some coaching. So
Yeah.
I got to know Nicola. And the weird thing was her parents lived around the corner from me.
I know, right? And she lived in Vancouver.
And of course,
there's a connection here. There's a London Vancouver connection that continues to this day.
So sometime later, she was visiting, and we met up in our local pub, for a drink at lunchtime. Because well, wouldn't you? So that's how it started. Yep. But we actually physically met in Vancouver.
Yep.
In 2018, and this is the story that I took my family skiing in Whistler. I've got 2 young children who had never been skiing, and Alison, my wife, has said, well, let's take them skiing, let's go to Whistler. Never been there. And we said, we can't go all of that way and not have a few days in Vancouver.
Yep.
Yeah, it's sensible. So we were in Vancouver after the skiing holiday, and on the Sunday morning, I said to Alison, take the children down to that diner down the road, because we were staying in the Fairmont, and I'll meet you at the Science Museum at 11.
Yep.
Now, I won't repeat on it exactly what she said, but it was an exclamation.
Not impressed.
What are you going to be doing? What are you going to be doing? I said, I'm going to have a meeting. He said, who? You don't know anyone in Vancouver. You've never been here before. And I said, well, I've got a meeting, and not only that, you know who it is.
There you go.
Yep.
I don't know anyone in Vancouver. So it was Trevor Turnbull. She said, that bloke off LinkedIn. Oh. Anyway, she took the children out, and I remember we had this conversation which we videoed, because the whole point of the meeting was to do a video testimonial for you, because we'd had great success with the system that you developed, as was, because this is going back in time 5 or 6 years now.
Yep.
And I remember we were videoing this video testimonial. It was a conversation a bit like this in the coffee shop underneath the Fairmont, and bizarre, it was British themed. Do you remember? It was all tartan, one of those old red phone boxes.
Yep. Everywhere. It felt like we just kind of time warped back to your home in the middle of Vancouver. Yeah.
We did this conversation saying how wonderful Trevor's system was, and we'd had great success with it. And then you're packing up, and you asked me casually, well, what are you doing now? And I said, well, we're doing these R&D tax credits in the UK. And you said, oh, we've got something like that in Canada. We call it SHRED.
Yep.
I said, really? Yeah, he said, we don't spell it like that. It's SR and ED. So I wrote that on an app. Anyway, to cut a very long story short, that's why we've now got a business in Canada. That's why Sarah's here. We've just got 2 other employees in Canada. It's all down to you.
Yep.
That throwaway comment at the end of that video testimonial. Anyway, that's an illustration. We met online. We have met physically. And Trevor, well, obviously through design, but also inadvertently, has generated massive value for me and Invennt. And really, this was really, I want our listeners to hear what the latest is, Trevor. So, I mean, start. I mean, LinkedIn was how I came across you, and the sort of path into your world.
Yep.
Really, really quickly, Trevor, this is actually quite funny because of the irony with the SHRED. So my mom actually worked for the CRA for the last 36 years, and she was part of the team that developed SHRED in Canada.
Oh, wow.
And I had never even heard of it until I moved to London and started working for Tim.
Yeah.
And so the irony is just bizarre with the whole shred. So my mom, when I told her that, she was very excited because that's
Yeah. That's crazy.
Crazy, yeah.
This is the
Small
thing.
world.
We never knew, either Sarah or I, about that connection with the CRA until she'd been working with us for a few months.
Few months, yeah.
Yeah.
Wow.
It was one of those jaw-dropping.
Like, wow.
Well, this is there's so many, ironies or whatever you want to call it. Yeah, karma instances that are happening here, but it's kind of essentially kind of like what I've ultimately built my business around in a weird kind of way. You talked about us meeting up and having an intention for that, Tim, and just a random mention of this thing, because at the time it was something that I was literally looking at myself. I was like, some consultant had come to me and said, hey, have you ever done shred? And I'm like, what is shred, right? So actually start looking into it, and then one thing after another, you kind of pull these pieces together. And ultimately, I'll just show if people can see this on the screen. I don't know if they can or not, if we're just audio only pod. Okay, so we are doing video too. Cool. So this is just a printout of the cover of this guidebook that I created. It's called the LinkedIn Linchpin Method. And I created it in March when COVID hit. And exactly how it sounds, it's basically built off the premise of Seth Godin's book, Linchpin, which is Are You Indispensable, is essentially the subtitle of that book. But it really kind of revolves around the idea of how can you become the linchpin to your client's future success. And that's just one example of that, of like just mentioning something in a conversation where we meet face to face that then leads to this chain of events that brings us to this point, and massive success revenue wise and all kinds of relationships built along the way. So this is just such a perfect example of it in real life, right? And obviously the big elephant in the room is that we couldn't even do what we did then right now if we wanted to. Well, we kind of could. I could show up at that gym with you in the morning at 7. We could have had coffee and breakfast this morning before your gym opened up, Tim, I guess. But, it's still a little bit taboo and a little bit, risky, quite honestly. People are going to be cautious about meeting face to face. Yeah, going to conferences and everything else. So there's got to be a way to keep building that personal connection. This is what I was thinking to myself back in March. I was like, okay, there's a big shift happening. I could kind of, you could see it coming, right? It was kind of a slow build. And then eventually it was like lockdown, and everybody's like, oh my Lord, I need to figure out how to set up a desk in my bedroom. How am I going to do this? Right. And and it's just kind of snowballed from there, and it's starting to become the new normal. But at the same time, there's still a lot of, just uneasiness about it. People are noticing that the referrals are drying up. What they used to do to connect with their network and generate opportunities just from word of mouth it's slowly going down, and it's just going to keep going that way unless you find a way to stay in touch with your network virtually, like we're doing here, right? This is a great example of it.
Yes, I mean, I'll pick up on that precisely because I'll use our own example. Pre-COVID, so anything before the 13th of March in London, for me, that is. Although we were, obviously we've discussed, we were not behind the curve, I don't think, in terms of what we did with social media. But we did, most of our business came from, let's say, traditional networking type activities. So live events of one sort or another, whether that be a breakfast roundtable briefing, going to an awards dinner, presenting at an awards dinner, the cocktail circuit, whatever it was, we did it. We did lots of, I used to do face-to-face breakfast. That's the thing. That's why this podcast is Construction Big Breakfast, because it was playing to the theme.
That's your brand.
Yeah.
That's the thing I always look forward to see. What's Tim having for breakfast today? But I always knew that the breakfast was tied to a meeting, and like it was so obvious that was like the main way that you really drummed up a lot of your business, I would imagine.
That's right. It was, I mean, yeah, I'm not revealing anything secret. It was part of the sales process. The person on the other side may not have realised it, but that was part of the sales process.
Yep.
So we've had to pivot very significantly, both on the marketing and the sales process, starting in the middle of March.
Mm-hmm.
And you're right. If you haven't pivoted, if you haven't picked up on new or developed new systems and processes, you're going to be really struggling now, because this is 8 months later, and you must have run out of the leads by now. You must have.
Yeah.
The first 2 months.
Oh no, there's no doubt. I did a webinar on this topic a couple of weeks ago, and just talked about the problem of what people are doing right now, or the lack thereof of what they're doing to kind of replicate what they had before, which was exactly what you just described. And unfortunately, most people have been sitting back and waiting for the phone to ring, right? Number one, they're just like, well, maybe the leads will just keep coming in. Maybe those referrals will keep coming in, and they just literally dry up. And then secondly is that people are always looking for a hack. How can I hack my way into this? What's that? Maybe I could just throw some money at ads to get my brand in front of people. So that's been one of the major things that I've had to educate on recently, is like why obviously those things don't work, and how we can mirror the live networking experience as much as possible, and the importance of video, like not only video calls like this and interviews and podcasts and whatnot, but even using tools to just send a video message to somebody in the same way that you would interact with somebody if you walked into a networking event and went up to the coffee bar and introduced yourself. How would you do it? And that's usually the starting point of grounding people in the idea of, oh, so if I use video, it doesn't mean that I have to pitch them something in a video. Like I can actually like build rapport and treat it like a human relationship.
Yeah, the attraction marketing side. They've recently introduced LinkedIn stories, and we've been using it on Instagram forever, and Facebook. But how are you finding LinkedIn stories being used?
Yeah, I saw it. Yeah, I saw it too. And naturally, anytime you see something new on LinkedIn's notorious of being horrible at notifying people of their updates.
They don't tell you.
Terrible. But that one was obvious because it just showed up right on the app, right? So I was like, oh, interesting. And I remember I recorded a video. It was late at night, and I was like, hey, doing my first story. We'll see how this thing goes. Haven't touched it since.
Yeah, I know.
Haven't touched it since.
We posted like 2 things and didn't get any real views, so I haven't really used it again since. But it works really well on Instagram, and I'm wondering how it's going to transition onto LinkedIn, if people are going to actually use it for that.
It remains to be seen, but it feels like the audience on LinkedIn, I believe, is just so different than the one that's on Instagram and Facebook and everything else. And I always, we kind of all live in our own bubbles of what we believe reality is. But I know for me, when I started in social media, I was literally like, my business was like understanding social media and teaching people and stuff. And I remember when Instagram came out, I stopped trying to keep up with all the tech, and I've never even got on Instagram because I looked at it and I was like, okay, do I want to spend all day doing social media, or do I want to actually do what I've always done, which is, I've always been in sales and relationship building, and I just saw LinkedIn as a way better platform to do that. And it was different, right? It wasn't about sharing. It's ironic, but it wasn't about sharing what you had for breakfast. But ultimately, sharing what you had for breakfast can be tied into your brand. It works for you, Tim. But in the Twitter world, you think about back to like 2009, 2010, and that was essentially what it was. People are taking pictures of their lunch and their dinner, and that was all they were sharing. And I think the professional world saw it as a bit of a waste of time, right? So that's a long answer to a short question of like, do I use stories? No. Will they be relevant in the future? Maybe. We'll see. Yeah, remains to be seen.
Yeah. We'll see if they'll become LinkedIn influencers or something off of the stories.
Yeah. Yeah.
To be seen,
for sure.
I mean, so obviously you position yourself. You are a LinkedIn guru. That's how we met, really, all those years ago. But as you said, the thing's evolving, and ultimately you have to be adding real value to people, don't you?
Yeah.
Otherwise, people soon get bored of even seeing my breakfast
For sure. And, just to ground people back in what that means exactly. I've been creating training and basically using the platform for the better part of like 12 years. And like the last 10 years have been creating training and then offering services and then now coaching and everything else. But if you step back to 2003, like I have a marketing degree and went straight into a sales job. And I was taught how to sell in 2003 till like 2006 by a sales manager who threw a phone book on my desk and said, "Best of luck, kid." Right? So like this stuff didn't exist. I was selling signs at the time, so it was like advertising focused. So my language in the sales world and what I was pitching was about frequency and reach, right? So like if you bought that billboard and 10,000 people drive by there every day, this is how many people will see it. And then they'll see it twice a day because they go home or they go to the office and then they come home. So that was essentially where my brain was at. So I brought that into the digital social world, and specifically with LinkedIn and how you can use that understanding of how people make decisions and how they're influenced along the buyer's journey, and what LinkedIn plays in that part, right? So it's important to say that out loud, just so that people that might be listening don't think that like we're not talking social media here. We're talking about sales, right? Yeah. And we're talking about sales from the perspective of what used to work still works. People do business with people. End of story, dot, drop the pen, drop the mic, whatever. People do business with people. So how do you create the connection that's required to actually turn somebody that doesn't know that you exist, to get their attention, to have them believe that you have an expertise in a certain area that has proven results, and then ultimately create the chemistry that's required to have them choose you versus somebody else that offers the same thing that you do. And it doesn't matter if you're selling, tax credit, shred stuff, or if you're selling, projects in the construction space, or you're selling life insurance. It's all the same stuff. It's all the same. It's sales is all about relationships. So, definitely. And we'll dive in. I'm sure we'll dive in deeper on that.
Yeah. What are some of the biggest mistakes that you see professionals making on LinkedIn in regards to that? Maybe not pushing sales or being too sales focused, or what are just some of the biggest mistakes you see people using specifically on LinkedIn?
The biggest one for sure is that they look at the messaging inbox like an email list, and they think that they can just broadcast out to people and pitch.
Right.
If a person looks at it differently and thinks like your network on LinkedIn is like your network circle that you would have had in the past, that is your breakfast club, right? So if you go to that 5 a.m. breakfast every week and you meet with the same people and the intention is to get to know each other and be able to pass referrals on, that takes time. And there has to be rapport built. There has to be a level of, like what I said previously, they need to know you exist. They need to know you're good at what you do and you're reputable. And then they need to know who you are as a person and why they would refer you, because ultimately their reputation's on the line, right? So it's really just a switch in the way that people see the platform as like, this is not a broadcasting marketing tool. It's a networking relationship building tool. And when you look at it from that lens, you start to change the way that you use it and how you interact with people and, how you add value to those people. Because that's the amazing opportunity with LinkedIn. And I can get into the details of how to go about doing that exactly. I'm not sure how deep we want to go.
Yeah, no, that's fine. Yeah. But it's important too about curating the quality of the connections and networking that you have, not just adding. I've seen professionals just adding as many people as they can, but they're not your target market. So it doesn't matter how many people you have. It's really, you've got to curate a solid network of people that you actually want to work with and sell to.
Yeah, there's a balance there for sure, right? Like the idea of just trying to get 30,000 connections for the sake of having the numbers is kind of like wanting to publish content on LinkedIn and then looking at the likes and thinking that equates to dollars.
Yes.
It doesn't. But that being said, the more exposure you have, it's kind of like the analogy I used before, which is like frequency and reach, right?
Yeah.
So you just never know. It's kind of like, me and you connecting in Vancouver, Tim. We have a conversation. I say one thing and then one chain of events leads to the next, and you just never know where that's going to be. So where I'm getting to with that is that I hear a lot of times, especially people that are not, that self-proclaim as like, I'm not a social media person and I don't connect with anybody that I don't meet in real life. That's a mistake. And I'll tell you why. Because number one, right now, if that's the case, you're not going to connect with anybody unless you connect with the security guard at the gym, Tim, right? So you have to expand the possibilities of like, okay, I need to go and connect with people that I've never met in real life because I need to do this remotely now, right? And then just know that like every time you walk into a networking event, yes, your intention usually is very specific of like you're meeting somebody or like you see similar people, but your goal always should be, how can I meet one new person or two new people to expand my network? You do that intentionally when you go to a live networking event. So why would you not look at it like that on LinkedIn? So just wanted to give a little context to that because I know that question comes up a lot. Like, should I connect with people I've never met in real life? And the answer is yes.
Definitely.
If you see an opportunity to add value in each other's lives, even if you know that you'll never do business together, because that person might know somebody that might want to do business with you or vice versa.
That's a good point.
Yeah, I think that you're so right there, Trevor, because network effects are really what builds brands, builds businesses. And if you're a brilliant physical networker, you might be out every night and you can do it. You can't do it at the moment. It's not allowed most places in the world, and it hasn't been for a long time.
Yeah.
We might be seeing the light at the end of the tunnel, but it's not going to be back to normal till next summer at the earliest, but not here, or where I'm in the UK. But
yeah.
So this idea is you've got to build a network, which means initiating some form of contact or initiating a relationship. And then there's some processes you need to go through to build a bit of rapport, develop that relationship, show that you've got some value to add.
Yeah.
Before you can really expect anything really great to happen.
Yeah. Yeah. And the easiest way for me to explain this to people, because there's a lot of pieces to this, right? Like, well, what do I do with my profile and who do I reach out to and how do I do it? Should I pay for it? Should I use the free version? Do I need content? Like there's always a million things. If we break it down as simply as this, and this is why I kind of planted that seed at the start about like, it's all about habits, right? So like you're getting back into the habit of going back to the gym because now the option's there, but you know, there's going to be a transition point here for you even too, to like, you know, build the habit to get up at a certain time of day and go to the gym and build that back into your routine. It's the same thing with how you approach LinkedIn. If every single person listening to this just made a habit to go on LinkedIn for 15 minutes a day and connect with one person or 5 or whatever, you know, the limit is that you can build into your day, and connect with past clients, past colleagues, past bosses, whatever. Start with the people you already know and then expand into, I'm going to go connect with one person I've never met in real life before, and just literally hit connect on LinkedIn. You start the habit of doing that every single day. And this is what ultimately my focus is in everything that I do right now, is a lot of coaching around the mindset of creating routines so that you actually go and do this, because nothing happens unless you create the routine that then has a action behind it that creates the habit. Definitely. And that's just a simple example. But then when you start layering onto that, you say, okay, now, you know, you're connecting with somebody new every day. Now go and engage on somebody's content every day. And that can be as simple as just liking something, or even leaving a quick comment that says, thanks for sharing app mention Tim Fitch, you know. Absolutely. And that starts to be another muscle that you're building, right? And then the third one, and I'm looking actually here, I'll just pull it up. I got it stuck on my wall right now, but I created like a checklist right here, and I kept it super simple. It's like 3 things that you can do. But the next one is really start doing proactive outreach and even recording videos to connect with people and introduce yourself to people.
Right.
So you build those habits and those routines, and you start to see change happen. It's kind of like, you know, how do you quit smoking? Well, most people don't quit cold turkey. They gradually kind of work their way into it, you know?
Patch on. Yeah, wean off.
Yeah, exactly.
Weaning
How do you, How do you create a better routine for eating breakfast? Well, step 1, go buy a Vitamix blender. Step 2, go buy some
greens.
Buy some vegetables. Yeah. Step
Yeah.
3, chop it up into individual bags and throw it in the freezer so that I
There
can
you
dump it
go.
in. Like, I'm already thinking
Make it
about
easy. Yeah.
the routine that needs to create the habit that then just becomes where I can come back to you guys and say, I've had a green smoothie for breakfast every day for the last year.
Right.
But yeah.
You know, on that point too, what about bad habits? Because I notice when people, I get a lot of connections, and this is about the in-mail, back to the in-mail point we were talking about. I get a lot of people who send me a connection and immediately there's a sales pitch in it. And this is just, for me, a terrible habit because I just write that person off straight away. I think it's just the worst thing that you can do. But, as Tim experiences a lot, he'll get a lot of people sending him an inbox asking him, oh, can we do your shred claim? Or your tax claim, and we're like, did you even look at what we do? Like,
yeah. And that comes back to one simple statement. And you guys, if you want to highlight this one as like your promo for this show, marketers ruin everything. Because as soon as people start to catch on that, like, there's a way to automate things, or plug in a piece of software, or if I just send enough messages saying, you want to buy my stuff? You want to hop on a sales call? You want to buy my stuff? And 1% of them take you up on it, that it's a good strategy. But when everybody starts doing that, which like this has happened just in the last like year or two, is that everybody's getting more savvy. Everybody's online, Zoom, for example, I know we're not using Zoom right now, but Zoom went from 5 million to 300 million users in a month, right?
Yeah, crazy. Yeah.
So the idea of like technology being a barrier for people to start marketing and doing business remotely, it's gone. Like, it's overnight, it's literally gone. Sure. But what that means is that everybody's learning the kind of stuff that I used to teach, which is, play the numbers game, send enough connect requests, do the outreach like you're talking about, because what you're talking about, we used to do. But then everybody, and it used to work, don't get me wrong, but then everybody started doing it, and then people just started ignoring it. Yeah, they just ignore it, right? Because they're like, that's a script, and you're trying to sell me. Yeah. We just met, and you're trying to go in for the kiss. Like, it's too early. It's too early,
Yeah, we have an expression for that, which I will tell you later, Trevor.
Not safe for the podcast. You'll be censored. Yeah,
I'll get told off if I told you it. But you're quite right. There's stuff that used to work that doesn't now. People have got tired of it. I think it's a good point. I think the other point around the adoption of technology, the mere fact that we're talking and we're, I don't know how many miles apart we are, a lot, 7,000 miles apart, we're doing a video call. There was resistance until March. Now, even if you wanted to do it, the other party wanted to be comfortable doing it as well. And that's gone. Yeah. So using our own experience, we are, I was doing it on a sales call only yesterday with a guy who's in his 60s, which isn't that much older than me, but he was, I'm absolutely certain he hadn't been doing video calls for very long.
Yeah.
But nowadays he's got no choice, has he? So
no,
that is a permanent shift. No matter what happens now, that this will be the norm.
Yeah.
Well, and it's an exciting shift too, because it's unlimited possibilities now. Instead of just being able to connect at a networking, drinks event, now you can connect all over the world. Way easier. I like it. I think it's brilliant.
I'm looking forward to.
Yeah.
Well, but we do miss a good network.
I do like the old-fashioned way as well.
We do miss not to scrap that entirely, because that's always a good idea.
Yeah, 100%. And that's, I think, an important distinction here too, of like how we built our business and even how we're positioning ourselves right now. Because there's a lot of people out there that are saying, hey, it's never going to go back to the way that it used to. So figure out how to use the digital stuff and do everything remotely. Like, I'm of a different mindset. Like, I came from the world too that, business was done best when you could shake a hand and look at somebody in the eye. And it's still like that. Like, it'll always be like that until, I guess, Gen X kind of pushes beyond into the grave.
Yeah.
and everything's done digitally through, holograms in a virtual reality. But fortunately, I think we'll all be gone by the time that actually becomes the real reality or the new reality.
I saw yesterday there's a mirror that you can get in your house, which has a personal trainer that does an AI personal training in a mirror with you. I was just like, wow, that's over the top. But
yeah. Now, and that's okay. This is a slippery slope for us to go down, but imagine like virtual reality where you like put the goggles on and you watch yourself work out, but you're not actually working out, but there's some way chemically that they can actually alter your body by simply watching yourself.
Like simulation. Yeah.
All right. We're going down a slippery slope here, but this is the truth. Like this is the reality. And where it breaks back to, Tim, and this, so what happened for me when I ultimately said to my wife, hey, I need to go write this, because I wrote this in like 4 hours in my basement, home office, was my dad invited me to Zoom. I got an invite to join Zoom and I was like, oh my gosh, the world is imploding here. Like, what is going on? Like, they've been so resistant to technology. And then that happened. I was like, okay, everything just changed. Like, in my world, it changed instantly. Yeah. And I thought I need to figure out how to tell people how to make the old work with the new. And that's ultimately what the guide ended up becoming. And there's a lot of details to that. And I'm sure we'll link up how people can get it, because it's, it's like 27 pages.
Without the show notes, don't worry.
Yeah.
One thing you did mention a little while back was this whole idea of video messages, because I know you sent me a couple the other week, which I was very intrigued by. I'll just give you our own take on this. Last year it was, Sarah, wasn't it? This is how it was an idea.
The coffee?
I made a few clips of me. We used to have these little gifts that we take people when we go to a sales meeting.
Yeah.
And it's a little, very expensive bag like you might get if you bought some perfume for your wife, with a packet of Invennt brand coffee in it and a coffee mug and a few other bits and pieces.
Some whiskey.
Nice.
Some whiskey.
And some whiskey.
Yeah. And a recipe for Irish coffee. And what we normally pass that across when we're having a sales meeting. But to break the door down with a couple of people, I sent them a video of me unpacking this, saying, when we meet, you'll get one of these, and this is what it looks like. And I'm looking forward to giving it to you.
Yeah,
we did that, and we made it very personal. So I was talking about to the person, and to be fair, we got a 50% success rate with that.
That's awesome. That's a great example though too, because when I talk about video messaging, the first thing that people think of is like, so what, am I sending messages to strangers that might look at it and go, who is this creep that's trying to get into my DMs, to use the slang term the kids are using? But that's a great example of, okay, so they know who you are. They've already invested in booking a meeting, so they're already interested in diving deeper into what you do. Now you use a video to just build a little rapport and set some expectation and kind of get some excitement before the meeting, and it leads to better outcomes for everybody, right? Because it like accelerates the trust process. Yeah. That's a great example of how video works at every stage of the buyer's journey and the sales process.
Prior to videos, I was doing a lot of voice note recording.
That's another really great way
I've been
too.
Using voice notes for years, and that's a great way as well too, because people will be texting and suddenly I'll be like, I'm really busy. I'll just send them a quick voice note, and then they're like, oh, I can hear your voice. I like this, and I like that too.
And that's ways. Sorry, go ahead, Tim. Go ahead.
It's ways of building not just rapport, but you're revealing more about yourself, what you sound like, what you look like. Your personality can come across in a video.
Definitely.
Yeah.
Much less ambiguously than it can in an email. So an email, it's very hard to get the tone right, isn't it?
True.
Yeah.
The perceived tone.
Yeah.
But if you've got a video of somebody there talking to you, it's there, isn't it? I mean, it's not quite the same as being in the room with them, but it's, as people who are watching this will know, if you haven't ever met me, you've got a pretty good idea what I'm like.
Yeah, no, and I'm actually doing a deeper dive. So whenever I go down these paths, I kind of end up down a journey of an area that like has nothing directly to do with what I do, but has everything to do with what I do. And one of those areas is like, what is the psychology of like connecting face to face or seeing somebody's eyes, you know, like a human connection?
Yeah.
Because it's powerful, you know, like there. And then also from just the patterns of how people consume information too. So like email is so entrenched in what we do every day that it's still one of the best ways to stay in touch, to follow up, that type of thing, because people open their emails, right?
They do.
But then you think about like text messaging. So text messaging, like, and phone calling. So like cold calls, like we don't even bother anymore. What's the point? I haven't answered my phone in 3 years unless it's my wife. Like that's it.
Somebody, you know.
You
Yeah.
can still block her.
And yeah, I'm starting to get used to that, of just being like block, right? Like all those 1-800 numbers and stuff. But there's a pattern to that, right? And the idea of, okay, well, text messaging, well, people respond to texts, but eventually, you know, that's a kind of a personal thing, right? So if you go and find somebody's phone number and text them, it's a little odd, right? You use LinkedIn to do it. It's on a permission-based platform where people are saying, yes, I'll connect with you. Now you can send text, you can send audio, you can send video, and there's pros and cons to each. Video is probably the most demanding of the person to capture their attention, right? But it's also the most intimate, for lack of a better word. Like in the business sense, it's like they get to see you and they get to hear you. Audio, they get to hear you more than a text. Text, it's the quickest, but we're also damn busy nowadays. Like, I don't know about you, but I get hundreds of messages a day.
Yeah.
And that's just on LinkedIn. Like we use a tool called Slack as well for just internal communications. And I monitored it the other day and I get 200 notifications a day on Slack. Like it's getting to the point where I'm starting to ignore it, right?
Yeah.
And these are the psychological patterns, the sales triggers that I'm fascinated by, about how you can like disrupt the pattern of how people are used to consuming information. And it's why I say like this video messaging, there's a window for this, because eventually somebody's going to see this and go, I should try that. And then somebody else will, and somebody else will. And then everybody will be doing it. And then it's not going to be cool anymore. And we'll have to find a new way.
Which
and
is
a
when
lot of
holograms
times
will come in.
Which is when holograms will come in. Yeah. But ultimately, I think what's going to happen with all this is that people will start to realize that they can't rely too much on the technology. Like you have to go back to networking 101, which is showing up and connecting with people and bringing them an Irish coffee kit. That's still how people will do business in the future. This is just a way to make sure that you can continue doing business until that's a reality. And then there'll always be an adaptation of a little bit of that and a little bit of this going forward, right? A little bit online, a little bit offline.
Yeah.
But that's why I joked about it at the start, but like the businesses that don't adopt this, we will see them like fold in the next year. We will, because what are you going to do? How big were those budgets in the past for companies that sent their entire team to the construction conference?
This is an excellent point.
10 people, hotels, flights, trade show booth worth $100,000. Like, what are they doing with that budget now? Are they sitting on it because they don't know what to do?
That's excellent point.
This makes me super excited because this is obviously what we do. So we know we're at the like cusp of like that.
The money's out there, Trevor.
We're the linchpin to helping them understand how to do that. And to stress again, there's no push button. Let me just go hire some agency to do it for me. It doesn't work like that. You have to train the people. And this actually ties into what we talked about before we hopped on here too, which is like, how does the company leverage LinkedIn, right? The key is, don't look at it as an advertising platform and a place to broadcast your stuff. Empower your people to build their network, because that is going to always be 10 times more effective than anything that you can do under the logo. The people connect with people. The people do business with people. Empower the people on how to use the platform better to network better. That's really what it comes down to.
Well, that is very insightful, Trevor. That draw this to a close. We've been going for about 45 minutes. We're over time. I want to get told off. But I mean, I hope all of our listeners, Trevor's the guru in my opinion, on the whole thing around online networking, marketing, relationship building. And in the last 40 minutes or so, we've had some really great hints and tips. But of course, as Trevor said, it's about training, changing behaviours, having some systems and processes. And at the end, well, I mean, Trevor, what's the best way of people getting hold of you? We'll put it in the show notes, but just say it out there now.
Yeah, just search for me on Google. You'll find lots of ways, but obviously LinkedIn, just look my name up, Trevor Turnbull, and you'll find me on there, and you'll find everything about what I do, and this LinkedIn Linchpin method guide's all linked up there. And I'm a believer that information should be free, because quite frankly, there's so much information in this world. Like, why gate it behind some wall? So I believe in that. Like, everything we've talked about here, and okay, sounds good, but now what? Like, I have resources for people to just start doing this stuff, because I know that if they do, they get that endorphin rush of like, whoa, this is working. And now they want to talk to the guy that built the system. So it's a really good model. It's actually something that I encourage other people to do too, is like, access to information is so easy now. So whatever you believed was your trade secret before, you should actually, openly share that. Within limits, right? Obviously, there's certain things like your guys' business. There's a few things about what you do, I'm sure, that you want to keep a secret. But at the same time, educate people, inform them of something that they don't know.
That's absolutely knocks the nail on the head, because with the shred business and the R&D business, the sale is about education, because most people don't believe they're doing. People just don't know. They just don't believe they're doing any R&D. Anyway, that's
why you're doing this podcast, and that's why Sarah's there, obviously, to lead the charge on content marketing and everything else. You guys are doing all the right things, and it's always a pleasure to talk to you about this stuff. We end up going down rabbit holes and good rants and stuff, but I think we got a few good sound bites here today.
No, there's some great stuff.
Great chatting with you, Trevor.
Just for everyone, just remember what value I personally have had it from Trevor's training, because not only did it help me market my business in the UK, when we actually met face to face, he gave me an idea for another business, which is why we are in Canada, is exactly because of Trevor. And only on the last little call we had last week, I was talking to Trevor about another idea I've got, and blow me, he put me in touch with somebody. I've had one meeting already. There will be another one this week.
That's awesome.
You're the gift that keeps on giving, Trevor.
Well, there you go. There's a law of reciprocity that's kicking in here, and that's the name of the game. Networking, one done well, is just literally, how can I add value to that person's life, and know that it always comes around. It always comes around.
I love that.
That's exactly right. Well, look, on that note, I'm just going to say thank you very much, Trevor, for your time. And I hope, as it's probably past 10 o'clock now in the morning, that you have a good day today in British Columbia. And to everyone who's watched this, if you've liked it, please like, and what have they got to do? Subscribe, Sarah.
Yeah, like us, subscribe, share it around with anybody who you think would gain some knowledge from this. And then make sure you check out Trevor's website and his free content marketing tools. So.
Okay, everyone, thanks again, and we'll see you on the next podcast in a couple of weeks' time. So, bye.
Bye.
Thank you.
Come to Invennt for the highest R&D tax credit you can claim. We help construction businesses get back millions in tax credits every year. Contact us today for a free review. Thanks for joining us this week on the Construction Big Breakfast. Make sure to visit our website, www.inventt.com, where you can subscribe to the Construction Big Breakfast on all platforms, so you'll never miss a show. While you're at it, if you found value in the show, we'd appreciate a positive rating. Or if you'd simply share it with a friend, that would help us out too. Be sure to tune in for our next episode.